if you're any good at what you do, you're probably going to be really good at having a conversation, helping someone through the buying process, overcoming objections, those kind of things. That's something we can always all get better at. But a lot of times the decision is made before someone even shows up. You know, what separates our most successful clients from everyone else? It's not necessarily what they do during the pitch or during the sales appointment. It's what they do before it. By the way, on that note, if you have any specific feedback or would be willing to give a testimonial, that would mean a ton. We are going live with ads on the book here before the weekend. And I would love to be able to share just a couple of little blurbs and testimonials from some clients and what you guys think about the book. So if you would be willing to do that, I would love a video, if you don't mind, just, turn your phone on, 30 seconds. Hey, hooked a book from Gabriel Ryan, and biggest takeaway that I'm going to be applying to my business right away is X, or what you took away from the book. If you wouldn't mind doing that and sending that in, that would mean the world to me. What I found is exactly this, that most salespeople show up to close, but the top performers really set everything up to close before, which I know may seem nuanced, but I think is really important and critical. There's 4 specific strategies that I'm going to share with you on this call. If by the end of the week, or by the end of the month, you were just to implement one of these things, I think you would be better set up for every single sales appointment that you have. Some of these ideas are shared in the book, by the way, which hopefully you guys had a chance to read through some of that. Start off with kind of really what I consider table stakes. Sometimes it can be easy to ignore the fundamentals, but there are some fundamentals here that are really important. So the first one is mastering your pipeline management, especially when we do start to automate some of this stuff, is that a lot of our clients will start to rely solely on automation. I sell automation. I'm a big believer in automation, big believer in the leverage that content and code can give you. You never want to automate what should be systematized. What I mean by that is there are certain things that we can systematize. We can create a standard operating procedure or SOP. We can create a process for that maybe requires some human touch. We want to be strategic about it though. If you knew, let's say you're sitting down in front of a lead sheet with 100 leads. If you knew of those 100, who were the top 5 or 10 that were most likely to buy, who are you going to start calling with? You're going to start calling with the 5 to 10. When we flip over to automation, the false belief is that oh, great, now this system, the automation can just handle all of that. And I'm just going to show up to the calls and close. So what do we actually want to do? What's the solution to actually master our pipeline management? It's just having a couple of things that you do on kind of a habitual, regular basis. The first is we want to review all scheduled appointments. Again, may seem obvious and foundational, but I was talking with a client just yesterday who has been talking about kind of some lead quality issues, and I'm looking at his pipeline and his prospects are messaging him back and he's not responding to those messages. That's going to be a problem because things are going to change. People are going to schedule things. Their schedules are going to change. You are not their top priority. And so we want to make sure that we are reviewing these things and staying on top of these things. And we want to prioritize those high value prospects. By default, when we're using AI to set appointments, as soon as the appointment is booked, we typically recommend and suggest and set it up so that AI is turned off. Now, there are reasons why we do that. And I do see a future where we will have a whole team of agents. But right now, in order to kind of keep a tight hold on things, we have Ava, and her main job is getting people booked onto your calendar. And when they click to cancel, getting them rescheduled. But anything else, we're going to need that kind of human touch. Just being aware of that is going to be really important, right? Because then if what's happening between the time that I book and the time we actually have the appointment? Well, Growth Map is sending out confirmation emails, reminders, text messages, and things. And a lot of times people will then respond to those. We've got an SLA, a service level agreement, that says we will look at and respond to every single message before noon Central and 5 p.m. Central, Monday through Friday. And we monitor these things every week. We're always reporting on average response time, resolution time. Those things are important. Same thing should be true for you in terms of your speed to reply to existing clients. So the first thing that I'm doing with this pipeline management is I'm literally looking at the pipeline, and that's how I'm working my pipeline. The next thing that I'm doing, and this gets important when it comes to some of the proactive steps that we're going to take, I'm actually going to take a look at the calendar itself. So if you're here in Growth Map and you just click on calendars, you can set whether you want to see, a day view, a week view. And when you're here in this week view, you can toggle different views in here based upon what it is that you want to see. And so if I'm specifically, I just want to look at my sales consults, I might go over here to calendars and click the box for the calendar associated with my sales consults or my demos or whatever it's called in your account. But I'm definitely at the start of each day looking at what sales appointments do I have today, and let me make sure I didn't miss anything. They're not wanting to reschedule. If I'm going to do a personal touch or a text, a voice memo, place a call to them, anything like that, then I'm going to go ahead and add that to my list. So when it comes to mastering your pipeline management, again, you don't need to spend a ton of time doing this, but this little bit of extra attention, having kind of a weekly and a daily cadence is going to be important. Number 2, confirmation calls. This is one of those areas where I think having a personal touch makes a ton of sense. Now, there's 2 different places that I would consider implementing one of these confirmation calls. The first would be immediately after they book. As soon as you get that booking notification that comes through, hey, you have a new appointment on the calendar, it would make sense for you or someone on your team to give that person a call. I just want to confirm a couple of things. Want to confirm you received the details. Hey, did you get the email? Is it on your calendar? Helping them make sure that they got the email. Yeah, I got it. Okay, great. Verifying the time and time zone. This is really critical, especially if you're selling across multiple time zones and virtually. Growth Map does auto detect. The second point that we could do this would be a day of. If they don't pick up, just leave a voicemail. And then when I leave a voicemail, I like to follow up with a second piece of communication as well, whether that be a text message or an email. So again, these extra things, especially in a world where people are getting more and more sensitive to AI and automation of those things, like adding in these personal touches is a really big deal. The second option is a day of confirmation. This, I would say, I would introduce this maybe only after you've done point 1. And this is really good to do, like if you have an office admin, a VA, someone else that can kind of handle this, just calling out all the appointments that are on the calendar that day. What will also happen is you will get questions. You'll get questions about your offer. And so that does require you to then be able to navigate that. And I think it's why a lot of people kind of resist it sometimes too, is it's just another thing to do. And you don't want to get into your pitch before you actually get to the appointment. And that's where, I would just kind of deflect it like, hey, that's exactly why we want to meet with you. We're looking forward to going through that with you, and just make this just about, hey, just locking in details to make sure we make the best use of our time. What'll also happen is you will get more people needing to reschedule. But the good news is, rather than them no-showing, you're giving them an opportunity, because you're going to be a lot better off that than just a straight up no-show. Number 3, the personal video welcome. This is probably one of my favorites because I learned this from my friend Mike. Anytime someone books an appointment, he pulls out his phone and looks at the little green dot and just talks for 30 to 60 seconds to who he just booked the appointment with. He told me he has yet to send one of those messages, and he's sent hundreds of them now. And he has a 100% response rate. You know their website, you know their name, you do a Google search, something like that, personalize it. That's going to make a big difference. The pipeline management thing is kind of table stakes. I wouldn't say to not do that, but if you did just one thing from this call, if you started introducing these personal videos to people that have booked appointments, I'd be shocked if you didn't get some good results. Strategy number 4. Now, this is kind of an advanced maneuver, because the new Path Cliffhanger Story is one that, imagine someone has booked an appointment with you. What do we need to sell them on before we sell them on our product or service? The path, right? Which is like the mechanism, the strategy, the thing that's unique to us. So they have to be sold on that before we're going to actually make our offer to them. So what we want to do with this example, whether it be through email, text, or video, my favorite is video, is to be able to tell a story that sells the path before we even get to the call. So the way that story can be structured, and again, if you've done the work with the New Lead Fast Track, you have kind of the building blocks here, because you probably now know what your path to success looks like. you know what the alternative paths are that they could take to solve the same problem or get the same result, then you can tell this story. And we want to start by just kind of talking about like, hey, here's all the alternative paths. So two different ways this could look. This could look like your own personal discovery of how you found this way of doing things, whether it's a personal experience, or it's a, what you noticed in terms of like what are the options are out there. You're going to kind of start there with what are all the alternative paths. Then you need to bring in that kind of aha moment where you discovered the new path. How did you learn this? And it's ideal if you actually have a specific guide or a mentor or someone that's that Yoda-like figure, if you've heard of the idea of the hero's journey. So we start with what are the alternatives and kind of painting that in a realistic way so that you want to get them nodding in agreement of like, yeah, like these things all make sense. These were the things that I was looking at, or the things that I've tried, or I've heard the horror stories of, or I was actually going to try doing this on my own or whatever. And then step 3 is the core principle. So there's got to be kind of one core idea that makes your path or your process actually work. If we don't have our dog's attention, it's going to be impossible to train them. And so I had to find the best way to be able to get their attention. We don't want to get into the tactics of the how. This is where the cliffhanger is. We want to reserve that for the appointment. So we've now told them, hey, here's all these ways that we could go about solving this problem. Here's how I discovered that actually, when we meet on Thursday, we're going to dive in step by step on how to do this. And again, if you're doing this in a video, you could record this video once and you could share this via text or email. Now they have some context of what you're going to be discussing on your call. It also gives them a reason to actually want to show up, because now they want to get the answer. They got to scratch that itch, right? My challenge to you would be to pick one of these strategies and do it consistently for the next 30 days. You're going to see better results from this